The galaxy had known peace for over 5,000 years. The great alliances, bound by mutual respect and collective prosperity, had flourished for centuries, bringing stability to a vast array of species. Old enemies had been laid to rest, conflicts smoothed over, and life across the stars was governed by treaties and diplomacy. But in the heart of the Galactic Empire, a dark hunger stirred, an insatiable thirst for dominance. The Empire, an ever-expanding conglomerate of power-hungry rulers, saw the peaceful order as a threat to their ambition. They had waited long enough. When the Emperor's declaration was broadcast across the galaxy, it shattered everything. A single message: the Empire was declaring war, and peace was no more. It wasn't a battle for territory or resources. It was a war to reshape the galaxy under their absolute rule. The peaceful worlds that once lived in unity now faced a storm they had never anticipated. The Empire's war machine was vast, its fleets a terrifying sight, its soldiers cold, efficient, and merciless. As the ships descended, civilization trembled. The Empire moved swiftly, annihilating defenses before the local governments even had time to react. Planets that once thrived in harmony were now under siege, their people either crushed beneath imperial boots or driven into hiding. The galaxy was on the brink of a dark era, one where subjugation replaced peace, and fear replaced trust. And in this chaos, Earth, the one planet that had remained largely neutral, watched in silence. Humanity had long been distant from the galactic politics of the galaxy. Their technology was advanced, their people strong, but they had kept to themselves, content to live under their own banners, unaware of the brewing storm in the stars. But when the first Imperial ships appeared in Earth's orbit, it became clear that humanity could no longer remain neutral. The destruction of peaceful worlds was not something they could ignore, not when the very foundation of their civilization rested on the preservation of peace. The first broadcast from Earth's leaders was filled with urgency. The call to arms was not simply a request, it was a declaration. The humans had no intention of bending to the will of the Empire. This was a fight for survival. As the broadcasts reached every corner of the planet, human forces rallied under one banner: the United States Marines. The decision was swift. The military machine that had once fought on Earth's soil, on countless battlefields across their own world, would now be unleashed on a galactic scale. Earth's leaders didn't mince words. The U.S. Marines, the finest soldiers humanity had ever produced, would be the ones to confront the Empire. And in this moment of galactic upheaval, they would show that humanity would not bow to tyranny. The message was clear. The United States Marines will lead the charge. Prepare for war. The words echoed across the stars, reaching every corner of the galaxy. There was no room for hesitation or second thoughts. The time for diplomacy was over. The time for resistance had come. The Marines were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Empire, accustomed to their well-trained soldiers and elite mercenaries, had no idea what was coming. The Marine Corps had been shaped over centuries by the harshest trials on Earth: battles, survival, sacrifice. Their training was not just about weapons or technology. It was about the will to win, the heart to never stop fighting, no matter the odds. As they gathered, readying for battle, the reality of the stakes set in. The Marines were not fighting for control, not for resources or power, but for something far greater. They fought for the survival of every free species in the galaxy, for every world that had once known peace. They fought to reclaim the galaxy from the clutches of a power-hungry empire. There was no room for failure. The Empire had made a grave mistake. They had underestimated humanity. They believed the humans to be primitive, disconnected from the rest of the galaxy's intricate web of politics and power. They thought their soldiers were nothing more than grunts in an inferior military. They were wrong. As the first wave of Marines departed Earth's atmosphere, heading towards the distant planet where the Empire's mercenaries, the vanguard, awaited, they carried with them more than weapons. They carried the weight of an entire galaxy's hopes, the weight of humanity's fight for survival. There would be no retreat. No surrender. Only victory or death. The Empire's elite soldiers, trained in every form of warfare known to the galaxy, would soon find out what happens when they face humanity's finest, the United States Marines. And it would be the Marines who would show the Empire that, while they may have had the numbers, the technology, and the resources, they would never have the heart to fight like humanity did. The battle lines were drawn, and the stage was set. What began as the Empire's invasion of a peaceful galaxy was about to turn into humanity's fight for survival, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The Marines touched down on the war-torn planet, their boots hitting the scorched earth with a resolute thud. The atmosphere was thick with smoke and the scent of burned metal, a stark contrast to the planet's once vibrant ecosystems. The Empire's war machine had already begun its devastation, cities reduced to rubble, once thriving populations now displaced or dead. The Empire's vanguard, their most feared mercenaries, had carved a path of destruction, leaving nothing in their wake but ruins and a sense of hopelessness. But the Marines were not here to mourn, they were here to fight. As the Marines stepped out of their dropped ships, their faces steely and focused, they immediately recognized the scope of the battle they were about to engage in. The vanguard were the Empire's elite soldiers, vicious, highly trained, and equipped with the latest in galactic warfare technology. These soldiers were a force to be reckoned with, trained to kill and break their enemies with unrelenting efficiency. They were seasoned veterans, battle-hardened and ruthless, with skills honed over decades of conflict. They were everything the Marines had prepared to face, and more. But the Marines were not like any other soldiers. They had been tested by the most brutal conditions humanity had to offer. Their training was not just about following orders or using advanced technology. It was about raw determination, survival instinct, and the will to push forward when every other soldier would fall back. The vanguard, for all their superior technology and vast training, had never encountered anything quite like the Marines. As the vanguard's forces dug in, preparing to crush the incoming human forces, they believed the outcome was already sealed. The Empire had sent its finest to ensure that humanity would be nothing more than another crushed foe in their expansion. The Marines, however, did not see the situation the same way. The battlefield was theirs, and they were determined to take it back. The first shots rang out as the Marines deployed, but it wasn't the chaos the vanguard expected. It wasn't the sudden rush of soldiers charging blindly into the fray. It was calculated. The Marines knew what the vanguard didn't. They didn't need to outnumber their enemies. They only needed to outsmart them. The vanguard relied on technology, their advanced weapons and tactics, but the Marines understood the value of adaptability and cunning. The first wave of Marines launched surprise attacks from unexpected positions, flanking the vanguard's strongholds and catching them off guard. The vanguard's first instinct was to fight back with overwhelming firepower, but the Marines didn't play by the same rules. They adapted on the fly, using the terrain to their advantage, setting traps, and exploiting weaknesses. Each move was deliberate, each action a part of a larger strategy that the vanguard were unprepared for. The vanguard's advanced weaponry, while devastating, was slow to adapt. Their soldiers, used to fighting less resourceful enemies, struggled to match the Marines' unconventional tactics. The vanguard's training had taught them to dominate with strength, but the Marines fought with resilience and resourcefulness. Their tactics were unpredictable, their movements fluid, and their ability to recover from setbacks unmatched. As the battle raged on, the vanguard began to realize that the human Marines were not like other soldiers. They were relentless, and they would not be broken. The Empire's mercenaries, who had once believed themselves invincible, began to feel the weight of their overconfidence. What had started as a simple assignment to crush a weaker enemy was now a fight for survival. The Marines had turned the tables, and the vanguard, despite their superior technology, were losing. The Marines pushed forward unyielding, their presence on the battlefield like a force of nature. They didn't care about the odds stacked against them. They didn't care about the Empire's advanced weaponry or the superior numbers of their enemies. They cared only about victory. Every attack, every counterstrike, was driven by the same unwavering determination that had brought them here. It wasn't just about defeating the enemy. It was about breaking their will, about showing them that no matter how powerful they were, they could not match the resolve of humanity. The vanguard's leadership, once confident in their ability to crush the humans, now found themselves scrambling. Communication lines were disrupted, their plans were shattered, and their soldiers were falling one by one. The battlefield was no longer a place of controlled chaos. It had become a proving ground, a place where the Marines showed what it meant to fight with heart, where strategy and willpower triumphed over mere technology. What the vanguard didn't understand was that the Marines weren't just soldiers. They were a symbol. They were humanity's answer to an empire that believed it could crush them. The Marines were not fighting for conquest or power. They were fighting for something far greater: the survival of their species, the preservation of their freedom, and the defense of everything the galaxy had once held dear. The vanguard's overwhelming strength began to feel insignificant as the Marines relentlessly pressed forward, proving that there was more to warfare than advanced technology. The Marines were about to teach the Empire a lesson they would never forget. The Marines didn't back down, didn't falter. They were moving with purpose, making every shot count, using every tactic available to push the vanguard back. The Empire's elite soldiers, who had once seemed invincible, were now questioning everything they thought they knew about war. The Marines had shattered their illusion of superiority, and with every passing moment, the vanguard's confidence crumbled further. They were facing an enemy who wasn't just surviving, they were thriving, adapting to every challenge, and showing the Empire that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. And so, the battle continued, the Marines slowly but surely turning the tide against the Empire's might. The vanguard, once proud and unshaken, now found themselves retreating, realizing that they were not invincible after all. The Marines, relentless and determined, had proven that no matter the odds, humanity could always rise to the challenge. And this was only the beginning. The Empire was about to learn a lesson they would never forget. The U.S. Marines had arrived, and they were here to stay. The battle was no longer just a fight for survival, it had become a fight for the soul of the galaxy. The Empire's forces had underestimated humanity, and now the Marines were showing them that their overconfidence was their greatest weakness. The Empire's once invincible war machine was faltering under the relentless pressure of human ingenuity and resolve. The vanguard, the Empire's elite mercenaries, had been pushed back, but the tide of battle was far from settled. The Marines, however, were not just fighting, they were strategizing, adapting, and evolving with every move. In the wake of their initial successes, the Marines did not rest. They understood that this battle was more than a simple confrontation. It was the beginning of a new phase in the war. The Marines had already proven that they could face the Empire's elite and come out victorious. But now, they had to ensure that their victories were not fleeting. The Empire would not take this defeat lightly, and they would surely send reinforcements to crush the rebellion. The Marines knew they had only one chance to turn the tide in humanity's favor. The time for small victories was over. They needed a decisive blow. With their strategic edge, the Marines focused on cutting off the Empire's logistical support. They struck at supply lines, disrupted communications, and targeted key Imperial strongholds. The Empire's once efficient war machine began to sputter as the Marines' guerrilla tactics left them scrambling. The Empire's commanders had never encountered an enemy who fought with such relentless resourcefulness. They had thought that superior firepower would win them the day, but now they realized that there was something far more dangerous than weapons: the sheer determination of human will. The Empire had relied on its advanced technology to maintain dominance. But the Marines didn't need to rely on shiny new gadgets and overwhelming numbers. They relied on what made them different from the rest of the galaxy: their adaptability. The Marines used every tool at their disposal, whether it was ancient battle tactics or the latest tech, and they combined them in ways the Empire could never have imagined. They turned the Empire's strengths into weaknesses, using their own strategies against them. The Marines did not fight with the same predictable patterns that the Empire was accustomed to. They were constantly shifting, evolving, and outthinking their enemies at every turn. As the Marines made their moves, the Empire's leadership began to panic. Their best soldiers, the vanguard, were being pushed back, and their supply lines were crumbling. The Empire's fleets, once so dominant, were now stretched thin, and their ability to respond to the Marines' strikes was limited. The commanders began to question their strategies, wondering how they could have underestimated such a tenacious opponent. The Marines had shown them that there was more to war than technology or sheer force. it was about the willingness to outlast, outthink, and outfight. The Marines' unyielding spirit became their greatest weapon. As they moved from one victory to the next, the morale of the Empire's forces continued to plummet. The vanguard, once seen as the epitome of military excellence, began to crumble under the constant pressure. They were skilled warriors, but they had never been tested like this. They had faced enemies who relied on brute force or conventional tactics, but the Marines were something else entirely. They were a force of nature, relentless, unbending, and impossible to break. The Marines' leadership, recognizing the tipping point, made a bold decision. They knew that this battle would define humanity's place in the galaxy. It was not just about defending Earth or its colonies. It was about showing every other species that humanity could be a force to be reckoned with. They organized their forces for a final, coordinated strike against the heart of the Empire's command structure. The Marines had to eliminate the leadership that had orchestrated this war and bring the Empire to its knees. The Empire, desperate to maintain control, sent its most dangerous weapons to stop the Marines. They deployed their most advanced ships, their most lethal soldiers, and their most secretive technologies in a final attempt to crush humanity's rebellion. But the Marines were ready. They had already learned the Empire's patterns, understood their tactics, and anticipated their moves. The final assault was swift and brutal. The Marines struck where they knew the Empire's defenses were weakest, using surprise, speed, and precision to cut down their enemies one by one. The final confrontation was a testament to humanity's resilience. The Empire's best soldiers fought fiercely, but they were no match for the determination of the Marines. The battle raged on, but the Marines' resolve never wavered. They pressed on, pushing deeper into the heart of the Empire's command structure. Each strike, each counterattack, was another step closer to victory. The Empire's forces were breaking, their once mighty war machine grinding to a halt. The Marines had proven that they could not be stopped, and now, the Empire's reign was on the verge of collapse. As the Marines took control of the Empire's central command, the remaining Imperial forces scattered. The leadership that had initiated this war was defeated, their plans shattered. The Marines stood victorious, not just for themselves but for every species that had been threatened by the Empire's tyranny. The galaxy, once again, would know peace, this time, thanks to humanity's willingness to fight against all odds. The Marines had done what no one thought possible. They had not only fought back against the Empire's forces but had crushed their will to fight. The once feared vanguard were now mere memories, their name associated with defeat. The Empire, once poised to dominate the galaxy, was left in ruins, its power broken. And humanity, through sheer determination and unity, had proven that no force in the galaxy, no matter how technologically advanced, could stand against the human spirit. The galaxy was forever changed. The Marines had won. And the Empire would never again forget the lesson they had learned: underestimate humanity at your own peril. The final battle was underway, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. The Marines had already proven their resilience and resourcefulness in every skirmish, but this was the true test, the last stand that would either bring the Empire to its knees or see humanity wiped from the stars. The Empire's leadership had underestimated humanity at every turn, and now they would pay the price. The time for subtlety had passed. It was time for the Marines to end this once and for all. With the Empire's forces scattered and their command structure in disarray, the Marines knew that this final assault had to be decisive. Their objective was clear: eliminate the remaining leaders of the Empire, cut off their last line of defense, and cripple their ability to continue the war. Every Marine, no matter how battered or tired, knew the importance of this moment. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about victory, and ensuring that the Empire would never again threaten the peace of the galaxy. The Marines moved swiftly, their strategies precise, their strikes deadly. They used everything they had learned in their campaign against the Empire's forces. They had become masters of adaptability, and now, they would show the Empire just how unpredictable they could be. The Marines hit the Empire's last strongholds with overwhelming force, but they did not rely on brute strength alone. Their tactics were honed to perfection, leveraging every weakness they had discovered in the Empire's defenses. The Marines used the terrain, the environment, and even the very elements against their enemies. As they advanced, the remaining Imperial forces desperately attempted to regroup. But it was too late. The Marines were already in position, and their presence alone shattered the Empire's confidence. The Empire's leadership had underestimated humanity's ability to fight with both heart and mind. The Marines had become a force of nature, one that could not be stopped. Their tactics were unpredictable, their resolve unbreakable. The Marines encountered fierce resistance as they pushed forward, but their spirit was unyielding. Every time the Empire's soldiers tried to regroup, the Marines were already there, ready to strike again. The Empire had no time to react, no time to reorganize. Their soldiers, once considered the best of the galaxy, were now scrambling to hold on to what little they had left. The Empire's elite forces were no match for the relentless drive of humanity. As the final battle approached, the Marines knew that the Empire's leadership would not go down without a fight. The remaining commanders, hidden deep within their strongholds, had already made their final preparations. They had called upon their most powerful assets, advanced technologies, secret weapons, and their most loyal soldiers. But the Marines were ready. They had anticipated every move, prepared for every counterattack, and now, it was time to finish what they had started. The Empire's final defenses fell one by one. Their best soldiers, once thought invincible, were either dead or retreating. The Marines advanced, undeterred, pressing forward with the knowledge that the fate of the galaxy was in their hands. Every strike they made brought them closer to their ultimate goal, the complete collapse of the Empire's control. The Marines were relentless, driven by a singular purpose, and they would not stop until they had secured humanity's victory. In the final moments of the battle, the Marines breached the heart of the Empire's command center. The leadership that had orchestrated this war, those who had believed they could crush humanity, was finally within reach. The last line of defense crumbled before them. The remaining Empire leaders were captured, their power stripped away. The war was over. The Empire's reign of terror had come to an end. As the dust settled, the Marines stood victorious. The galaxy had been saved, not by superior technology, not by overwhelming numbers, but by humanity's sheer will to fight. The Marines had proven that no matter how great the odds, no matter how powerful the enemy, humanity could always rise to the occasion. The Empire had been defeated, and its shattered forces were left to retreat into the void they had once sought to conquer. Humanity had done what no one thought possible. They had faced an empire that seemed invincible, and they had brought it down. The Marines had shown the galaxy that the human spirit could not be crushed, that humanity would fight for its freedom, its peace, and its place in the galaxy. The Empire's forces were broken, and the survivors scattered, knowing that they had underestimated a force they could never truly understand. The Marines' victory was not just a military triumph, it was a testament to humanity's resilience, to its unwavering belief in its own strength. The galaxy would now have a new order, one forged through the bravery and sacrifice of the Marines. And the message to the galaxy was clear: humanity was no longer a species to be ignored, no longer a backwater planet waiting for its turn to be dominated. Humanity had proven that it could rise above the most dire of circumstances and come out victorious. The battle was won. The Marines had secured humanity's place in the galaxy. And the galaxy would never forget the lesson it had learned: never underestimate humanity. The war was over, and humanity had emerged victorious. The Empire was no more, and the galaxy would now know a new peace, one built on the unbreakable will of the human spirit.